Okay, so the next row is cross-hatching. And for this one, we're going to do it in either blue or black ink, all right? And so I'm going to do mine in black ink. I have these Uniball pens. I like these pens. So find a pen that you like. And again, we're going to be trying to emulate the value that's right there, the stippling. We're trying to emulate that. You can see that it appears that the light is coming from this direction, okay, because we have our shadows this way. So the light is coming from this angle. The light's coming from this angle because of the shadows, all right? You can see that with this, it's probably a bit more up here. The light's coming from up here, creating that darker shadow that's closer to us. And so again, with the cross hatching, I'm going to start with the darkest shadows first, and I'm going to go in. I'm putting the lines pretty close together because this is going to be some of the darkest shadow in this particular drawing, this value that I'm trying to show. So I'm putting all the lines pretty close together. And then with cross hatching, we want to go in the opposite direction. So now I'm going to go this way. I'll notice that there is some reflected light right here, so I'm going to go a little bit closer with the lines. So again, the closer together the lines are, the darker the area. So I'm going to put the lines a bit closer together to kind of show that there's reflected light toward the bottom. Right? Now at the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put that, this is the direction that the shadow is going in, this way. I'm going to go in this direction first. You'll see that the shadow is darker, closer to the object. And then I'm going to change directions, go in the opposite direction to make cross hatching. Okay? The hatching back here over the... So again, I'm making them a bit more farther apart because it's not as dark of a shadow back there. Also, I don't want to get these to blended in. I want to make sure that there's a contrast between the two. And doing the lines in one direction, changing and putting them in the other direction. That's cross-hatching. And then with the other sort of shadow that's on the table, I'm just going to put a few lines in here just to create that. Notice that I'm going with the direction of the table, the flat surface, when I put in the lines. And then on the wall, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go, if the wall is up and down, vertical, I'm going to put my hatch marks going this way. And then the only part that we're missing is this, which is kind of a medium. So again, with these, the lines are going to be a lot farther apart. Okay, and then they'll be cross-hatching, but still very far apart, as opposed to the shadow area where they're very close together, right? So again, I'm trying to match that value that's in the first one up here. Now with the stippling, the same thing that we did with the hatching is that I'm going to start all of my lines that are going around the object. Again, following the form. The hatching and the cross-hatching follows the form. So you'll see that I'm leaving this area up here because that's where my highlight's going to be. And to make a highlight, you just leave it white. So there's hatching. Now I'm going to go make more of the shadows. So now I'm going to go cross-hatching. So I'm going to go the opposite direction, and they're a bit closer together to make that area darker. And then the shadows underneath. So with that, I'm going to go in this direction first, and that shadow underneath. And then in the opposite direction. So remember, these are or at another angle. Again, closer to the object, the darker the shadow is. And then I might have just a couple more lines here on the table, following the line of the table. And then in the background, there is some shadow around here on the wall. I'm going to make those a bit farther apart. So again, I can create contrast. I might even go back in and just make sure that this area is darkened. And create some shadow over here. And then just a few hatch marks on the back wall there that are farther apart. All right, and that is the sphere. Remember that those first hatching marks follow the shape of the object. Over here, they were flat. They were straight because that's a flat shape, right? The cube. The same thing with the next two, the cylinder. I'm going to start by having these wrap around the cylinder. They're sort of curving around the cylinder. And now I'm going to hatch in the other. Now remember, we have that reflected light in there, so I'm going to make sure to leave that area. I'm just going to go around it. So with that one, I wrapped around and then I went straight up and down, okay? Because that's what you have with a cylinder. You have the wrapping, and then you have the straight up and down of the shape, all right? Then the shadow here. And the shadow underneath. And some of the shadow in the background. Again, notice how I'm making these a bit more farther apart, because even though it's a shadow, but it's farther away from the object. It's not as dark. And then just a few lines here on the background. They don't even have to be cross-hatching. You can have a mix of hatching and cross-hatching whenever you're doing cross-hatching. And just a few lines here on the table. A few little lines coming there on the side. All right, so that's the cylinder. And now for the cone. And remember, the same thing with the cone. We have that shadow sort of wrapping around the cone like this. Wrapping around. But then I've got that area of reflected light. So as I do the other ones, I'm going to leave a space for that reflected light. And I'm going to create this shadow here. And a few lines for the table here. Okay, that shadow in the background, that is that kind of cone, sort of reflected cone here, a little bit of the cross-hatching. I'm going to go in and add a little bit more cross-hatching as well here, because it's our darkest part of the shadow. And then the hatching in the background, some more shadows here, a bit more farther apart. Going right up to the shape. Some more over here on the wall. Do a few hatch marks for the wall there. Okay, maybe a couple right there on the cone itself. Okay, so that is cross-hatching, to create the idea of shading using cross-hatching. All right, and there's a lot of examples of that throughout art history.